Hey everyone, it's patch 3.23 Affliction, and today I want to talk about the new broken specters that are coming out of the Wildwood in the new Affliction League. These are going to be incredibly powerful additions to basically any minion build and are going to be must-haves and must-includes into your build. And these are going to be something that you're going to want to add and want to potentially even buy before the prices go up, as the more people learn about these, the more these are going to skyrocket and the more people are going to want to buy them. The first one we're going to talk about is the one that a lot of people have been interested in, and it's the Perfect Forest Tiger. Now, all of these are going to have three versions. They're going to have imperfect, normal, so no prefix, and perfect. Each version is going to be slightly better than the other. So for example, the Perfect Forest Tiger gives haste, while the normal Forest Tiger and the imperfect one don't. And this is going to be true for all the specters that we're going to talk about. We're only going to mention the perfect versions here, as these are going to be the ones that people are going to be most interested in. So the Perfect Forest Tiger is very, very strong. It has a 5% chance to grant a frenzy charge to nearby allies on hit. It also just gives you a permanent level 20 haste. If you want to look a little bit deeper into this, it is going to be a little bit squishy at only 180% life, and this is going to be the main thing that you're going to look for as a inclination of how tanky this is going to be relative to other specters. And 180% is a little bit low, but it's going to have great armor and evasion rating, meaning this should survive pretty easily, especially when we combine with some of the specters further on. But a 5% chance for frenzy is not bad, considering its attack time is decently low as is. And if you look at some of the abilities that it has a bunch of pretty interesting options. It has a combo attack, which means it'll generate quite a lot of small hits. It has a teleport, which would be really nice. It'll be able to keep on target, so it can continuously attempt to roll the frenzy chance. And obviously we'll have the haste itself, which as you can see is going to be a level 20 haste. But the nice thing is it's going to have a 50% increased radius compared to normal haste. At least that's what I'm assuming this is going to mean. Meaning that should always be able to reach both you and all of your minions at all times. Now, as I mentioned, the life is going to be a little bit low, but some of the other specters should completely make up for this. Next up, we have the Perfect Forest Warrior. This is going to use a bunch of different attacks, which we don't really care about, but the main thing here is going to be that it personally has Culling Strike and all nearby allies have permanent Onslaught. That means this is going to not only instantaneously kill anything under 10%, which is a pretty big DPS increase and is going to make bosses feel better, but it also just means that this is always consistent Onslaught, which is going to be a very massive both clear speed increase, as you're going to move around faster and minions are going to move around faster, but it's also a consistent DPS increase for your minions. If we look here, we can see that the life of it is 398%, meaning it's going to be very, very tanky. This thing should basically never die, assuming you support it with maybe a minion life or a meat shield or an empower. This is probably going to be included in every build, just because there's no way you can miss out on movement speed, as well as the Perfect Tiger is also just more movement speed, and they should feel really good when combined together. Up next, we have the Guardian Turtle. This is just a turtle from Ancestor, and it's making a return as a corpse. This thing is going to be an absolute chad. It's going to have 488% increased life, meaning this thing will never die when we combine it with the 300% increased armor that it has. It's going to have no evasion, but it's going to have 20/20 resistance for free, which most of these specters actually don't have any resistance. So overall, this thing will be an absolute rock. And the reason we want to include the Guardian Turtle in our build is pretty simple. It's going to give us a free determination, and most builds run determination. Not only that, but it's going to give us 5% physical damage reduction permanently, and it's going to cast Ronakai's Boon. Now, we don't know exactly what this does. There's no node for it, but I'm going to assume it's most likely going to be the turtle and vulnerability, as this is just the Ancestor turtle, and the turtle and Ancestor made everything around it basically immune until you actually kill the turtle itself. I don't think it's going to give us immunity. That's going to be too broken. I think the boon is just going to maybe be an Immortal Call that it casts infrequently, which will be nice, but determination and 5% physical damage reduction is just way too good not to pass out on, especially when the determination also applies to all of your other minions and all the other specters. Next, we have an interesting choice, which might be good if you're playing Anime Guardian build, or if you need to keep the rest of your specters, the rest of your minions alive. We have the Perfect Meatsack. There is nothing special about this other than that it gives your minions 40% increased life, which will massively help, especially if you combine it with the Forest Tiger, which is kind of squishy. The other thing about the Meatsack is it has an 800% life modifier, meaning this thing will just never fall over. This thing can just be something you completely ignore and forget about. And another thing to mention is because it's so tanky, you could potentially add this to your golem build to make your golems have a lot more health if you're playing something like a Maw Mischief build. I think this one will see quite a lot of play, and I think this one kind of has to be included in most of the minion builds, as well as more minion life is always really good, especially if you're playing squishier minions. Next, we have the Naval Officer. This also has a variety of different abilities that do a decent amount of damage, but the things we're going to care about here is going to be permanent precision and nearby allies have 10 fortification. What fortification does is each fortification itself gives you 1% less damage taken from hits. This is 10% less damage taken from hits. This is basically half of Kingmaker, and when we combine this with a Forest Warrior, which has Culling Strike, you kind of don't need to run an Anime Guardian anymore, as you get both the Culling Strike effect of it and you get the fortification of it, meaning that you have all the good parts of an Animate Guardian without having to deal with an Animate Guardian and the potential of losing it. You'll only just be losing the corpse of these monsters instead, which shouldn't be too bad considering they're going to be pretty easy to find in the new area. The other thing to mention about the Naval Officer is that its health is also fairly low, but it is going to be capped on cold res, meaning you only have to worry about fire and lightning. Also having a decent amount of armor and evasion. This is going to be just as squishy as the Tiger, but I think both of these together will be just fine, especially if you scale a bunch of minion life. Next, we have the Perfect Warlord. Now, this one is going to be a very fun one. The main thing that we care about here is that it has Immortal Call, so keep itself alive a little bit better, while it also has Enduring Cry Vitality and the ability to share endurance charges with allies. So this will just give you and all of your minions permanent endurance charges all time, also giving you level 20 vitality. It has pretty decent health at 398, as well as some armor and evasion, meaning this should really never die because the stats on it are really good, and it has 20-20-20 resistances, making it overall very, very tanky. The nice thing to mention here is that the Enduring Cry is on an 8-second cooldown and immediately gives it 3 endurance charges no matter how many things it hits. So you'll always be at 3 pretty consistently and should have very close to 100% uptime through this. The Immortal Call is also really interested on it because it doesn't start the cooldown once the Immortal Call is over. It just starts it as soon as it uses it, meaning you'll have a decent uptime on it, which should make it overall super tanky when combined with the base stats of it. Next, we have the perfect Serpent Warrior, and I don't really know what to make of this one. I don't know if it's going to be a DPS Spectre or if it could also be a utility Spectre. It basically has a large amount of chaos skills while also inflicting Wither and having a aura of chaos when hitting poisoned enemies. If we go look at all of his abilities, it has quite a lot of different attacks, but unfortunately nothing that potentially sounds like the aura of chaos is here. So we don't exactly know what the aura of chaos does per se. It could potentially be just some sort of AoE, or it could potentially be some sort of added damage, or maybe a potential takes your poisons and deals it as damage around itself. We don't know exactly what it'll be. This could either be just a DPS Spectre that sounds pretty interesting on its own, or it could be a utility Spectre through Wither and through whatever the Aura Chaos is for both Poison SRS and Arcali. Nice thing about this is it's not going to really be squishy either. Now, it looks like it has low health, but also gains 100% of life as ES, meaning it effectively has 300% life while also being Chaos Risk capped, so the ES isn't going to really be that memey. The armor on it is also pretty good. It doesn't have an evasion rating, but I think overall this should have no problems to actually live. And if the Aura of Chaos is interesting, this will be a pretty cool Spectre to add. The last one to mention is going to be for our Allie. We have the Spider Matriarch. Now, I do have some personal experience with this as some people in my chat have tried it out. This is basically our Allie's Fang as a Spectre. The Matriarch itself summons spiders just in the same way our Allie's Fang does, needing corpses and needing a kill. We do not know if it has a cap, as we didn't actually see that, as this Matriarch died really, really quickly. The only interesting thing about this is going to be for our Allie specifically, because any allied spiders are going to deal additional chaos damage with attacks, meaning it's going to be a really big buff for our Allie's Fang. The problem is this does not actually have a roll on it, so we do not know how strong this aura is. So we don't know if this is going to be incredibly powerful or if this is just going to be kind of weak and you wouldn't really be including it. But overall, it's kind of squishy and it doesn't have any resistances. It doesn't have anything special. So it's going to fall over and it's going to be kind of difficult to make it live. But this potentially might be a new way of thinking about our Allie, where you don't even use our Allie's Fang. You instead summon this as a Spectre and use its built-in our Allie's Fang as your Allie's Fang. This will be something we'll have to test further, see if it's going to be viable, and it might potentially be a complete rework of how to put this build together. Now, last thing I want to mention about all of these is that these are going to be fairly expensive given how powerful these are. Some of these corpses are already going for a few div. For example, the Naval Officer is already going for 3 div, but that might kind of potentially be a meme price. Some of these also just don't have any listings currently. I believe the Forest Tiger is going for about a div or 2 each. And as more people learn about these are only going to raise in value. Now in the description below, I will have this notepad in there if you want a quick TLDR of what each of the Spectres do, and if you want all their names to potentially consider adding them into your build. But if you are minion builds, we are living in a renaissance of minions right now. There's a lot of interesting DPS Spectres on top of these I didn't really mention, but the defensive options from these corpses are absolutely insane, and fitting all these into your build is going to feel incredible. And it's going to not only give you a lot of extra damage to the attack and cast speed of the Onslaught and the Haste, but it's also just going to make you incredibly tanky. If your minions ever had any issues with living, this should take care of all of your problems with your minions living, as the total defensive budget of these minions when combined together is incredibly powerful. That's all I have to say for this video. If you have any further questions, please feel free to leave in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I also stream on Twitch every single day, and I will be incorporating all of these into my build as quickly as I can. And this will be included include it as an update to our Akali, as these are a must-have in our Akali and these should immediately be included. I'll be working on that video and how to incorporate these into that build specifically as soon as possible. Other than that, I hope you cuties enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the next video.